Hey, Rutgers students, last lecture on a nudge. So what's this purpose of this idea of a nudge? I gave you a few readings. I put a few up on Harvard Business Publishing website for you to read. But this idea of nudge comes out of a book by Sunstein, Cass Sunstein, and Richard Thaler. The book is called A Nudge. And what were they trying to do in this book? Simply, the authors were trying to come up with a justice system that would encourage people to do the right thing, yet without having an impact on them. To be more definitive, according to Sunstein and Thaler, a nudge, what is it? It's getting people to do something without restricting their freedom of choice or changing the financial incentives. What does that mean? It means simply if I want somebody to do something, and let's say that I think it's good for society. Well, what can I do? Well, I can tell them if they don't do this good thing, that we're going to fine them, right? We're going to hurt them in some way. We're going to tax them, or we're going to fine them for littering, something like that. So that's a negative financial incentive. Or it can be a positive financial incentive, such as what I explained in the video with Michael Sandel, which we were, there was an idea that, or it's a situation where the government in Chicago were paying kids to read books. Either both of those are financial incentives. One's a restriction of freedom, such as I'm going to fine you if you litter, and the other is I'm going to give you a financial incentive to do something good. Well, there's other ways to attack this. I'm not going to talk about reading the Ten Commandments or reading ethical codes, but I'm not going to explain it in real detail. But in some ways, giving people ethical codes or reminding them ethical codes, they tend to act differently. Now, am I restricting their freedom? Of course not. Am I changing the financial incentive? Of course not. I'm just presenting individuals these ethical codes, which in turn hopefully is going to make them have better behavior. So that kind of that starts the conversation a little bit. And there's a book, a very popular book by a Duke professor by the name of Ariely. He wrote a book on, it's called Predictably Irrational, and he explains, although he doesn't call it a nudge, he explains what drives people's behavior. So that's what I want to get into. So let's get back to Thaler and Sunstein and this idea of a nudge. And it's just, again, it's kind of a simple idea. And for this class, we're not going to get into great detail, but a couple things you should take away from this idea of a nudge. One, Thaler and Sunstein refer to it as something called libertarian paternalism. Now, libertarian meaning the protection of an individual's rights to choose, or protection of freedom. So they want to create a system to change behavior, but they don't want to take away somebody's right to do what they want, right? And that's the mainstay of libertarianism. They couple this with this idea of paternalism, which is, how can we get people to make better decisions that increase the welfare of the people, right? So paternalism being a little bit more motherly or nurturely. How can we get people to make the right choice without impacting their freedom to choose, yet at the same time wanting to do something good for themselves and for the society at whole? So I'm going to give you a couple ideas, and I think these ideas will sort of hit home for you when it comes to this idea of libertarian paternalism. So let me tell you something about the male species to all the women in the classroom. Some things you might not necessarily know, but the male species can be very vile in our behaviors. So take, for instance, most recently I was at a Rutgers wrestling match, and when you go into the men's room, what do we quickly uncover? Well, for women who don't have the luxury of going into this restroom, what you'll find is there's about a 1/4 inch of urine on the floor because men choose not to put their urine into the urinal. So we have a problem when we think about public spaces, stadiums, schools, work environments. You go into the men's room many times, not all the times, but many times, It is disgusting. So what can be done about this? Well, we can do a bunch of things. We can fine men. We can say if you urinate on the floor and you're to be caught, it's a $500 fine. Or we can say something like, hey, if you get your urine in the urinal, there'll be somebody watching and they'll pay you 10 cents for every time you use the bathroom. But both of those sound kind of silly, right? It's very hard to regulate those. So what else can we do? Well, we can create a nudge that allows men to continue to have their freedom to urinate wherever they like with no penalties, yet allow everyone to benefit from a nudge. So really, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get people to, or men, to improve their aim, right? That's really the goal. How can we improve men's aim and their incentive and their behavior to get their urine in the bowl? Now, I know some of this sounds kind of fun, but these are the interesting things that we can do with these nudges to change people's behavior. So enter this urinal. Take a look at the urinal that's on your screen. What you'll see in this urinal is that it looks like, and for what you're probably seeing, it's probably not high definition, but what you'll see there is there's this little speck, looks like a fly in some regards, right? Now, is that there on purpose? The answer is you betcha. And what does that mean? So let me tell you what happens. A man walks up to this urinal, and the man sees a fly, and knowing men's behavior and the study of men's behavior, the man says, oh, let me get it. So what do? They have perfect aim at the fly. They get all excited that they actually killed the fly, yet at the same time, society is saved because urine stays in the urinal. So that might sound funny, but guess what? It stopped the idea of urinating on the floor. Now, what's interesting is on each side of these urinals are other urinals, and the flies are in different spots. And the man goes into the other urinal next to them, and if it's in the same day, they think they have 2 for 1, and they continue to do this. Well, what's interesting about this is this little fly is etched into the urinal. It's there permanently. And I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I want to say it was in the 50 to 70% reduction in urine on the floor, right? So you get the idea. Is there a fine associated with this? No. Is there a positive incentive to the individual's financial incentive? The answer is no. There is a human incentive. I want to get the fly. And by doing that, I've enticed the individual who's at the urinal to have better aim, in the process, saving the floor and saving all the people around them. I'll give you a couple more examples. So littering. How do you entice people to stop littering? Well, same thing. We can fine people, and you probably see street signs all throughout the United States. If caught littering, it's a $500 fine or a $100 fine or whatever it might be. Or you could be walking through Central Park, or for my folks in Newark, Branch Brook Park, and you'll see signs there as well. So a whole bunch of people come up with some ideas. And some of the ideas they've come up with were put a basketball hoop around garbage cans. And that works. But the problem is when people miss the garbage, they never go pick it up. So littering, although it improves, gets the litter closer to the garbage, it doesn't remove the litter in its entirety. So what can be done? Many things, right? And many different ideas. But one idea that has been uncovered to work really well is this idea of giving people green footprints on the ground. And I believe this was in New York City. I believe it was in Central Park. So when we place these footprints on the ground, all around the ground, so wherever you are at this one point in time in Central Park, if you see a green footprint, you'll know that the garbage can is within 100 feet or 100 yards. I forget the amount of space. But nonetheless, you see these green footprints, you know where the garbage is. So no need to leave your garbage or to litter on the ground, and entice people to put their garbage in the garbage can. Now, once again, does this fine people? No. Does it pay people to use the garbage? No. But it was just simply putting these green footprints on the ground with paint. Well, what was the outcome? A 46% decrease in littering. Once again, we did not impact the person's financial incentives. We did not impact their ability to make a decision. But what we did is we changed behavior by doing something that was a little bit more libertarian paternalism in nature, right? A little bit more motherly. Yes, we all want to be in a city and we all want to be in a park where there's no litter. Yet at the same time, we don't want to impact a person's choices. I'm going to take you through, I think, 2 or 3 other examples. I'm not sure if many of you are familiar, but in San Francisco, there was something called rolling brownouts, and it was having substantial energy problems. And what can you do? Well, a lot of the energy companies figured we could charge people more for energy throughout the day, and they did that. Just like in New Jersey, you pay more for energy use during the day than you do typically in the evenings or on holidays. So what does this mean? Well, people didn't change their energy behavior whatsoever. Energy behavior stayed the same. So and that was a financial incentive, right? So that was impacting somebody in the pocketbook, and it still didn't change their behavior. So enter what we will refer to as the energy orb. What is this energy orb? This orb is something that sits on your desk or in your house, and it tracks your energy use versus the average energy use in a particular area. So assume for a second you have this energy orb, and it's sitting in your house somewhere in New Jersey or in the Essex County area. And assume for a second this energy orb has the color red. What that color red means is that you're using more energy than the average person around you. What starts to happen is it messes with your psyche in some respects. You start to say to yourself, do I really want to be spending all this money on energy? And what does that do? That possibly has the ability to push you to start unplugging things and start turning things off. Well, let's assume for a second you do that. You turn these things off, right? It's not really impacting your choice. It's all on you. But then that energy orb starts to turn blue or to green. And now your energy use is in the same as the average. Well, as your energy gets better, what happens to the average? The average improves too. So this continues, right? It's almost like something called adverse selection, which is you get better and everyone gets better. The average keeps going down, and it keeps driving reduced energy usage, right? Once again, nobody's fining you if you don't save energy. Nobody's telling you if you save energy, I'm going to give you some more money. Although there is a financial incentive on the back end, but that's not the main intent, right? So this energy orb has a 30% reduction in home energy use. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but many employers in the United States have identified that many of their employees save limited money, have no money. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the literature, but in the United States, we have a rather poor savings for retirement plan. We just don't save enough. Now, some of you probably have had full-time jobs before. Many of you probably had not. But when you go to work and you get a full-time job at one of the big accounting firms or a small accounting firm, most of them provide fair to say good, solid, strong benefit plans. One of the aspects of the benefit plan is a 401k. And 401k, many times an employee or an employer will provide a match for you, which means you open up this 401k savings plan, and the employer will ask you, would you like to put some money towards the 401k plan? And typically everybody says, yeah, I'd like to put a little bit of money away from my savings. And then the employer says, okay, if you put away this amount of money, we'll match this amount of money. Like, for instance, let's say you leave Rutgers University, you're making $70,000, and the employer says to you, if you put away 5% of your salary, we'll match 5% of your salary in your retirement plan. So 5% of $70,000, $3,500. You put away $3,500, the corporation will put away $3,400 for you. It's a free $3,500, right? Well, guess what? many people choose not to participate. And what we recognized, what the literature recognized, and Thaler and Sunstein go into detail in their book, is that many times people don't participate because it's cumbersome. You have to pick a plan. You have to identify how much money you want to put in each of these funds. It can get complicated, right? But at the same time, people have recognized this is good for me. The corporations recognize this is good for you, but people choose not to participate, right? Because it's painful. You have to spend some time to do it. So what happens, right? Rather than saying we would like you to participate, there's a new idea. And this idea is, rather than opting into a 401k process, you now have the option to opt out. So what does this mean? You start your first day at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and PwC says to you, you have been opted into the 401k plan. As of today, we will take out 5% of your salary and put it into a 401k plan, and PricewaterhouseCoopers will also put in 5%. That's as of today. Oh, but by the way, if you want to opt out of this plan, here's all the paperwork to submit to get out of the plan. Now, for some of you, you might say to yourself, will I opt out? Maybe some of you say, yeah, because I still need the money. But most of you are not going to opt out of the plan. Most of you are going to say, I'll deal with it, right? And there's some plans out there that actually will increase every year. I was just working with a company. They have this exact plan. The company has decided that they're going to take out 10% of the employee's salary, and then every year it goes up by 1% until the individual is saving 20% of their salary every year, and the company was going to put away 5%. So they get 25% every year. But similarly, they also have an opt-out process, which they give the employee, if you need the 10% salary, you cannot afford it. You can opt out of the process and keep the money. Well, they have some real strong success rates. I want to say, I think they have an 85% plus success rate in people staying in the plan. What does this do? Well, some of the research that's quoted in Sunstein and Thaler is that we know is that when we change things from an opt-in plan to an opt-out plan, we have about 100% increase in enrollees. That doesn't mean 100% of people enroll. It just means that if you had 50 people enrolled in the one plan, we now have 100 people that enroll in the opt-out scenario. Nonetheless, very, very strong, very good outcomes. There's a couple more too. I'll take you through one more unhealthy eating problem. Again, in the United States, and I was just in China, they have a similar problem, is that they have a lot of middle schoolers and high school students who make really poor choices in the cafeteria. Me being one of them, when I was in high school and middle school, I ate whatever I wanted to eat. Cookies, snacks, junk, whatever. Anyway, how can we entice middle schoolers and high school students to make better choices? Well, the same as always, right? We can say you can't buy it, we ban it, right? No Coca-Cola. Like for instance, in my child's high school and middle schools, no Coca-Cola products are able to be sold. Well, that impacts choice, right? That goes against this idea of libertarianism. And we'll save that for another day. But we don't want to ban any choice, yet at the same time, we want to be more paternalistic, and we want kids to make better choices on their own. All right, so what can we do? As mentioned, we can ban junk food, or we can raise the prices of junk food. Or we can put junk food on higher shelves and healthy food at eye level. Well, there's many studies that have shown that this works. So again, kids can, if I took all the good food and I put it at eye level, the healthy food, what we know is that students are going to choose the healthier foods. More frequently, they're going to choose the junk food. Now, does that change? Like if you're going into the cafeteria and you're going there premeditated, know that you want to have a Coca-Cola, is this going to change your behavior? Most likely not. But what will it change? It'll change those urges that you see when you come to the counter to buy the junk food. And does it impact Is there a financial incentive here to do this? No. I don't change the price. There's no penalty if you buy the junk food. There's no benefit if you buy the healthy food. What we know is that students were 13% more likely to choose fruit and 23% more likely to choose vegetables. So this is the idea of a nudge in a nutshell. A nudge, once again, is this concept of libertarian paternalism. Now, why do I bring this up? What's the main driver of bringing this up in an ethics course? Most ethics courses don't have the discussion of a nudge. I bring this up mainly for accountants. I also bring this up when I'm teaching a legal ethics course. It's important to know, particularly in regulated industries, self-regulated industries, which law profession as well as the accounting profession is in, is that we can change behavior without regulation, right? And when you're thinking about running a corporation, you can get people to do the things that you want them to do, and that's beneficial for them without regulation. Now, is regulation important? Absolutely. Are AICPA guidelines important? Absolutely. Are legal guidelines important? Sure. But what I want you to take away from this is, as millennials, which I think probably most of you are, as millennials, we like our choices. We like continue to have our freedoms. We don't like to be penalized, which is great. It's fine. And this is a way to do it. So I just highlight this for you. Use this tool as a way to change behavior should you have the possibility to do so. Anyway, that's 24 minutes or so on this lecture. I also left you another lecture for today. Anyway, that'll be it for the winter semester. You have more than enough lectures to get your head around. And as I mentioned, and will continue to mention on Blackboard, your case competition will be coming up shortly. Have a blessed day, guys.